Hello, mate. Welcome to British American Wacky Tobacco. Willy Wonka.
Welcome back to Strongman Personal Finance. We got to talk about British American Tobacco. It's all the rave on YouTube. It's all the rave on the Twitter Spaces. It's a very popular stock with dividend investors. And the question is, why? Well, if we go down and look, we can see that the dividend yield of BTI, British American Tobacco, I wonder what they make, is 8.71%. That's a pretty high dividend yield, and that's attractive to a lot of dividend investors because they equate an 8.71% dividend yield as their return. At least I hope they don't do that. But if we look at the last year of performance, the stock's down 21%. Over the past 5 years, the stock is down 39%, and over its lifetime, it's up a whopping 4,926%. So you can see this stock went to the mother effing moon at the end of 2000, or the beginning of 2000, and it shot up massively all the way to a high of, good lord, almost 80 bucks, and now it's back down to $32. So people are looking at this and they're saying, this is enticing, okay? Look how high the stock went up before. Look at the dividend yield. Look at the financial statements. It's really amazing. And if you look at it on the surface, it is pretty interesting, okay? If you go to their ratios, very interesting. It's trading for less than book value. What is book value? It's the shareholder equity of the company. It's all the company's assets on their balance sheet. Very, very big distinction there. Minus all of the liabilities on their balance sheet. So basically, if you're buying BTI, you're buying it for under book value, which on the surface is an amazing deal. Look at the price to free cash flow. You're paying $5.68 for $1 of trailing free cash flow. And price to operating cash flow, you're paying $5.35 for $1 of trading operating cash flow. This stock is, on the surface, cheap. Now, when I see this, I always have to wonder why. Why is BTI so cheap? And it took me a little bit, okay? I was reading about this company because I was actually interested in it a little bit. I was like, maybe I'll just play around and throw $100 in there on board. Let me do some research on BTI. Well, I was checking out their report. Okay, this is their most recent half-year report. So it looks like they release their reports every 6 months instead of, every quarter, like in America. But I was looking through it, and we could see some interesting things. Revenue is up 4.4%. They're expanding into other categories besides cigarettes. They're doing the freaking pouches. They're doing the non-combustible tobacco. They're really growing their revenue in new categories. So it seems like things really aren't that bad. They're growing revenue in a bad environment in an industry that is a sin industry, and they're selling a highly addictive product. So you got to say, well, what could possibly hurt this company? If you really look at their profit margins, let's go look at their financial statements. Look at their net income margins. We go down to operating margin, 38, 39%, insanely high margins. Look at their profit margins in the mid to high 20s. Look at their free cash flow margin in the high 30s and low 40s. This is an insanely profitable business. So if you think about it, it's like, okay, they're buying back shares, they're paying a dividend, they're insanely profitable. What is going on with this company? On a side note, don't forget to check out my pinned comment below to check out my Patreon. What is in my Patreon? You get access to a Discord community. You get access to me, Christopher Bell, Certified Public Accountant. And if you sign up for the highest tier, the VT tier, you get to actually meet me in person every other week and talk to me. So check out the Patreon in the pinned comment below. Come join the Discord community, and let's 20,000x, baby. Woo! Well, number one, they haven't done that well with their cigarette sales in the United States. There was actually a little drop in sales in the United States. That's the first issue, but not the biggest issue in my opinion. Second of all, they have a new CEO, this Tadeu Morocco guy, which it looks like he's worked for the company before. He just moved into the CEO role. But he's a brand new CEO, and he's just testing the water. So you have some risk there of somebody that could be amazing, but has just taken the reins, okay? You go down, and you can see that overall, the numbers are okay. They're paying off debt, their revenue's up, their earnings are up. But we go down and we can see that there are some concerning issues, okay? Number one, total combustible sales. What's happened to that? Well, it's actually dropped a little bit, and cigarettes as well. Okay, so if you look at it, their main source of revenue is dropping. Their smaller sources of revenue, the newer products, the vapor, the THP, and the modern oil, that has increasing revenues. They're growing those rapidly. That's the new wave. That's the future of tobacco. Less harmful, less addictive, or not less addicting, but less harmful. The old wave of tobacco, actual cigarettes, they're actually not growing that quickly, okay? That's concerning. But here's the very, very, very important thing. The FDA is considering banning menthol cigarettes. Now, the FDA is the Food and Drug Administration in the United States, and they have a lot of power. And the United States government has gone after the tobacco industry before. Now, this is very concerning for BTI. Look at the proportion of combustibles revenue. This is their actual cigarettes. This is the vast majority of their revenue. Look where most of their cigarette revenue comes from. The United States. A little under half of their cigarette revenue comes from the United States. And if the FDA goes ahead and bans menthol, which is what they're planning on doing, there might be an issue with this, okay? Because menthol is included in some of the cigarettes that are sold by BTI. You ever heard of Newports before? Yeah, you ever heard of Camel Crush? I've smoked both of these before. I actually liked Newports. People are like, oh, why are you smoking that? You're not the type to smoke that. I mean, I'm not going to go there. But I smoked Newports like in college for like a month. And I smoked Camel Crush when I was drinking at the bar and I was in the Army. And I liked it. Menthol is awesome. You know, it's really cool and refreshing. But that's the problem with menthol. Okay, the government doesn't like the fact that, number one, a lot of minorities smoke Newports. And they smoke menthol cigarettes. And it's actually a fact. I mean, like, oh my God. It's actually a fact. There's a lot more minority usage of Newports, you know, menthol cigarettes. And the government's like, well, you know, we're hurting the minorities. We need to save them from the Newports and the menthol. So they're trying to ban menthol to hopefully reduce minority diversity, basically, smoking of Newport cigarettes. That's basically what they want to do, okay? Now, if they go ahead and ban menthol, what is BTI going to do? Over half or a little under half of their combustible revenue, which is basically all of their revenue, a huge portion of their revenue is cigarettes. If half of that revenue comes under threat, or even a big portion of that because of this menthol ban, what's going to potentially happen to this company? They might have a massive collapse in revenue. That's the risk, okay? Here's another risk. If we go back and look at the history of BTI, if we go to their cash flow statement and we look at their acquisitions, in 2017, they spent $16.8 billion, or pounds, excuse me, on acquiring a business. What did they acquire? They bought this Reynolds company. Okay, what does Reynolds sell? Well, they sell Newports, which are menthol cigarettes, and they sell Camels, and I know they're menthol because I smoke them. Okay, Pall Mall, which are just I've known people that have smoked those, and they're just absolutely disgusting. Okay, but anyway, they spent a fortune acquiring this company, and they actually put a lot of goodwill on their balance sheet from paying more than the fair value of the net assets of this company. So we look at their balance sheet. If we go to BTI's balance sheet, we can see something very concerning here. Look at their total assets, 153 billion pounds, right? How much of that is goodwill and intangibles? 129 billion, okay? Basically, 80% of this company's assets plus is in goodwill. So goodwill is an intangible. It's not something you can touch. Basically, you pay more than the fair value of the net assets of a company. You're not overpaying for a company, but you're paying more than its assets are worth. You put that on your balance sheet as goodwill. Now, what's going to happen to this goodwill if they have to impair Reynolds, which is the company they acquired, because of this menthol ban? Well, that goodwill is going to go down. And you know where that decrease in goodwill is going to hit? It's going to hit the income statement. Go look at what happened to Teladoc, okay? So there is a reason that BTI is dropping. A huge portion of their assets are intangible. 85% of their assets, just doing math in my head, are intangible assets. And they have a significant amount of debt. Oh, and look when the debt spiked up. When they went ahead and acquired Reynolds. So their debt's up massively. They have a huge intangible asset on their balance sheet. And if you rip out the intangible assets, their total assets are only about, 24 billion pounds versus 77 billion of liabilities. That's a little concerning, okay? So BTI, they're trying to pay off the debt. They're trying to reduce debt. They're still highly profitable. They got a great dividend yield. But there's a concern with this menthol ban. And honestly, if the menthol ban wasn't happening, I'd maybe, chuck $100 into this just for fun, whatever. But with this amount of risk that's potentially there with this menthol ban, which they might do it, man. The government don't play when it comes to, saving the poor people or whatever, saving the world. The government acts quickly. Oh man, we gotta save the minorities from themselves. Okay, we gotta save them from their menthol cigarettes. We're gonna ban it. Don't be surprised if they go ahead and actually do this. Okay. I don't know. I like menthols. I like Newports. I like Camel Crush. But I'm more of a dip man myself, okay? So while I'm very partial to BTI because they have my favorite dip brand, Grizzly Wintergreen, and Kodiak, my two favorite brands are from BTI. I love it. This is a concerning stock, okay? Highly profitable. Revenue's growing. They're getting into new industries. But they have a lot of intangible assets on their balance sheet, number one. And there's a risk that this menthol ban will hurt a significant part of their revenues. Keep that in mind, and don't just look at the dividend yield, and maybe consider a total market ETF instead. Have a wonderful day. Cheers!